Good morning. Oh, Beef, you got a cookie over there?
It's Samoa season, my friend. I have a tray of cookies over here. I'm like Teddy KGB with my tray of cookies right here, ready for talk trades with you.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, obviously if you're joining to watch this or if you're watching this later, it's obvious that we're here because Chris Getz decided to make some trades. He made 2 trades in one day. One was with Jerry DiPoto, but I feel like he was channeling Jerry DiPoto. Like he must have got so excited from that trade. He's like, I need another one. So he made 2 trades yesterday. We'll get into both of them. For the first one that we'll talk about is the Mariners trade, which is they send Gregory Santos to the Mariners and they get back right-handed pitcher Prelander Berroa, outfielder Zach DeLoach, and the 69th overall pick in the 2024 draft.
Yep.
So I'm not really going to talk about the 69th pick. I don't know that there's
it's nice. We know that it's nice.
We know it's nice. We know it's nice. And trading draft picks, the comp picks are tradable. Nothing else. And so adding more draft picks to while you're trying to rebuild your farm system seems fine. That's a whatever. I'll let guys like Sox Machine and Future Sox get into the value of that 69th pick, who usually goes around those times, and have we ever seen a player enter our team that's around that area? I'm guessing Gavin Sheets is probably the only one. So
yeah, not much second round success in the White Sox.
Don't get too excited. But let's talk about some of the other guys they got. So Prelander Berroa is interesting to me because I started looking him up, and he's got a great fastball. It's a pretty good slider. And, don't think about this too much, but the command may be suspect. All right?
Yes.
So if you read, the Mariners bloggers that, follow the prospects and stuff, it's like anybody with their prospects, they're very excited about the possibility of these guys, right? And they're like, oh, the Mariners lab fixed him again. Took a starter. He's going to be a premier closer. That is a possibility. All right. But let's assume the projections that are being made for Berroa are closer to the truth. That walk rate is still bad. So he's got to fix that. So I assume that we're going to see him start probably. We'll see. Maybe he starts in the bullpen, but I think maybe he starts in Charlotte at first. Not start. I shouldn't say starts. Starts the season in Charlotte as a reliever. But Getz made it very clear in his press conference that he looks at him as a closer. Or sorry, a
reliever.
Reliever. But Beef, if he goes to Charlotte, what are the chances he hits the Durham Bull?
Very good. Yeah, very good because it controls well. Look, the Mariners do have a bullpen lab, and they have been turning a lot of nobodies into effective relievers. That's kind of what they've been doing there. And so if you want a glass half empty, this deal right here, this is a guy maybe they felt was more expendable. They'd rather have Gregory Santos than this guy. They'd rather give you this guy. So, if you're a little apprehensive about it, there's your apprehension, right? They're good at doing this. And they say, well, we'll pass on this guy. We'll take Greg Santos off your hands. What you mentioned about the comp pick, Treasy, the White Sox should just be doing this shit all the time anyway. You develop a reliever, trade him, get more stuff, and see if you can get something bigger out of the deal. I assume if they get Berroa right, in 18 months, we'll be doing one of these and talking about them trading him to somewhere else and recouping some stuff for him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I have a feeling that's the way that at least Brian Bannister views these things. Because I mentioned this yesterday that Brian Bannister has now been with the Red Sox, Giants, and White Sox when each of those teams traded away Gregory Santos. So yes. I don't think that it's I think maybe there's something to the Keenan Middleton rumors that maybe they don't love that. But my guess is that Bannister's just a guy that says to his GM, hey, we could churn out relievers. Feel free to deal these guys at their highest value. So, and Getz, kind of alluded to it in his press conference that there's a lot of volatility with relievers. So you don't know what you're going to get year to year. So I think it's a good move to say we like this guy, and we could get we could get him plus other stuff. And let's talk about that other stuff, Beef. Zach DeLoach. What are you thinking here?
I mean, it looks like there's a bunch of speed and power here in the profile, Chorizy, but it's a classic speed and profile. Good athlete, not quite a center fielder, although can fake it a little bit, but strikes out way too much. This is like the profile. Everyone is trying to like turn that person that has the 28% K rate and make him the 22% K rate guy, and then he comes to fruition. But it's the hardest thing to do in baseball. And so, like, yes, you got to, and he's older already. He's 25. Good numbers last year, but it's PCL. We always tell everyone, hey, if they're playing in Pacific Coast League, or they're playing in altitude, it's tough to trust those numbers. And so, to me, it looks like just a depth piece here. It looks like, okay, this is a flyer. We're going to try to see what we can get out of this guy. You know, I looked up his splits from last year. He looks like he hits righties and lefties equally well, even though he's a left-handed hitter. So, you know, it's one of these, let's try it. Let's add some depth. I mean, you can't get mad about the White Sox wanting to add outfield depth when you've been looking at Gavin Sheets in right field for so long. Like, you know that can't be what you want to look at anymore. And Getz knows that too. And like the fact that he waited so long, and everyone's like, "Oh, Gavin Sheets can be a starting right fielder this year." Like all the White Sox jokes. I mean, this guy is fine. I don't know if I'd project him to be anything, but he might become something. This is kind of like, you take shots like this. I'd rather do this. And we'll talk about the next deal, which also follows this. I'd rather do this shit than pay $7 million a year to get the next shitty right fielder that you plug in for 1 year and stinks. I'd rather do this than trade for Nomar Mazara's tired ass that has 4 years of bad major league production and you're like, oh, we'll turn him around. This, to me, is like a better path. Will it work? I have no fucking clue.
Yeah, to me, it feels like it's more of a lottery ticket. But, you know, Getz did say, like, we've been after this guy for a while. Like, this was someone that was definitely on their radar. So maybe they see something that they feel they can fix in his swing or in just his approach. Because, yeah, like, if you look at the projections, obviously in the minors, he had the high strikeout rate, but he also had a high walk rate.
Yeah.
But the projections, and this is for most players when they come to the majors, they expect the strikeout rate to climb and the walk rate to decline. And when that does, it looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
So they've got to fix that. But I don't think that this guy is expected to be on the roster. I think he's like you said, Beef, depth. Yeah. And, you know, it's a project. And if it works out, this guy could be a really good corner outfielder. If it doesn't, we will never see him. Like there's I don't see a lot of in between here. Like, I mean, like, injuries could happen and like he might need to you know, come up and play. Yeah. But like, you know, you also still have Oscar Colas, who they obviously don't like too much because the two trades yesterday are basically left-handed right fielders. So
yeah, exactly. They basically said, Oscar, we're pushing it down the depth chart a little bit. Why don't you take a breather here and see if you can figure things out in the minors? Yeah, it pretty much said that. But also, Chorizy, it could just be, let's throw a bunch of guys in here for competition. I was thinking about this as the trades are going down. The White Sox have made like 3 or 4 corner outfield non-roster invitee signings. You know, they got Brett Phillips, they got Rafael Ortega, they just got Kevin Pillar. I was thinking, I was wondering, did Getz have these trades locked up? And he's like, hey, guys, let me sign some of these old guys. Tell them to come in here that they got a shot. Then I'll trade for these guys ahead of them. So I'm already got them all locked in. But he has a pile. He has a big pile of outfield to try to combat the right field situation. And that's the right idea if you're not going to be buying, if you're not going to be buying Cody Bellinger. Here's the other approach. Here's the way you go about it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's, you know, like, as much as we complain about right field, and especially right field and second base, you know, a guy grabbing a bunch of right fielders, I think that's fine. Like, why not do it? This comes at a bit of a cost, right? This is going to affect your bullpen. But if they're not really trying to compete this year, and if they believe that Berroa is just as good as Santos, why not get that and the pick alongside Berroa? So
yeah, absolutely. No, and Chorizy, let's just dispel one thing right here. I saw a bunch of tweets. Who's going to be the closer? Who gives a fuck? Okay? You should be building your bullpen as cheap as possible. Modern bullpens generally, occasionally they'll spend on just the one guy when they have a real good team. They'll pay that one guy to be the save catcher. Don't worry about that shit. Build it as cheap as possible. Take a lot of risks and try a lot of things. the White Sox, the way they are, they're not going to be a high payroll team. We know this. You guys all scream about Jerry being cheap. This is the mode. This is how you fucking build up some depth here. It might not work, but this has to be the approach. You can't be buying $8, $9, $10, $15 million a year relievers like Rick Hahn was. That's bad business. Don't do that anymore. And they're moving away from it, and it's great. I don't know if any of it will work, but I like the approach from Chris Getz so far.
Yeah, and to add on to the closer thing, like the who cares? Who cares if Santos was even going to be the closer? Right. I don't know that he was. Why would you bring in Brebbia if you thought like, okay, this Santos is our closer? Yeah. So I don't know that they ever had faith in him being the closer for this season. Right. And I still don't know that they're going to have one single guy close. Right. I think there's a lot of mention from them about using the best guy in the best situation. And if that's the case, maybe we have 3, 4, 5 different guys closing, and I don't care.
Yeah, let's just worry about the occasional times when we have the lead going into the 9th inning. Right. Right now, we're trying to cobble together some people here. But Chorizy, bottom line is I like the approach, and I like the White Sox actually being aggressive and going and getting that comp pick as well. Why not get the competitive B pick? I mean, like the White Sox haven't been forward thinking in drafts or international signings in a long time. This is like the most forward-thinking thing I've seen them do. I guess I'll step back a little bit. The Mike Shirley era of drafting, where they drafted Colson Montgomery, and the reason why it was like a kind of a surprising thing is he's a prep player in cold weather, and he was old. So it was all like a lot of stuff that people don't take chances on. The Noah Schultz thing was like kind of a chance too. Like, okay, it's not going to
very tall.
They'll probably break him. He's going to go to Vanderbilt, whatever. And then the kid, the George kid, the tall guy, the 6'7" guy that they got. So they're starting to move in that direction. You have to think it's a little symbiotic the way Getz is moving here and the way they've started to move in the draft. It seems like that line of thinking, that group now has control, and maybe they're pushing out some things. And so the Compy pick, I like that from we need more gambles. We need to take more shots here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we should talk about the other trade. I think this is the trade that people are more on both sides. Like I think the Santos one, people generally kind of get the idea of like trade closers because you have no idea if this guy's going to be good again. So do this. They got more, they got multiple players. So let's do it. The 1-for-1 Christian Mena for Dominic Fletcher is the other trade, and I think that we see some good press about Fletcher. He's worked incredibly to become incredibly strong. His arms are gigantic for a person his size. Love it.
He's like the Southside bum. He got huge arms for his size. Right? Love it.
So I get people being upset about this though, because you're even when Chris Getz is talking about this, you're talking about a likely platoon bat in right field for a starting pitcher. And starting pitchers are valuable, right?
Yep.
Now, the other side of it is, though, they seem to have plenty of guys who are a 3 through 5 starter. Like that, their minor leagues is they've got a bunch there. They've got basically 4 of those guys in the majors right now behind Dylan Cease. So I get thinking of this as like this is something we have a lot of. And we can afford to move someone, and the Diamondbacks are in a similar position of like we've got a lot of outfielders,
right?
We can afford to move one, so this makes sense from both sides. I think though, Beef, where do you see Fletcher's bat? Because I feel like the defense seems to be there. Like I think everybody's pretty confident. You look at the projections; they're pretty confident that he'll be a fine outfielder. He could play center fielder. He's a little bit of a tweener, so he's more so gonna end up in the corners most of the time. But he could play center field if you need it. What do you think about the bat, though?
Yeah, you know what? I'm questioning a little bit Chorizy because he is small in stature, and so like he's having to overcompensate. He's only 5'6", I believe. He's having to overcompensate with the body. So these types of guys sometimes with the kind of like they got to max out to get it. They tend to become a little more injury prone than a normal guy in this spot. So I'm a little concerned about that. I generally, and people yell at me that I'm heightist. It's just that it's tough to be a professional athlete at 5'6" in these sports and to really excel there. Yeah, it seems like the tools are there to be a strong side platoon player. And look, about the deal in general, Chorizy, like, this is a baseball deal. This has risk. You may lose this badly, but that's fine. Like, you have to also make some of these trades. I think we've gotten to the point where the non-Dipoto teams, the non-Alex Anthopoulos teams, they don't make baseball trades anymore. It's always a timing trade. You're trading like time value compared to actually making a real baseball trade. To me, this is a baseball trade. We're trading a pitcher who's likely going to be in the majors this year. They're trading us a bat who's likely going to be in the majors this year. We'll know right away who won this fucking trade and who's smart and who's an idiot out of this deal. And if you're the White Sox, I like the approach, even though I like Mena. I think Mena, I thought you could plug in Mena at the end of last year in the rotation, Chorizy. So Mena's a real guy, in my opinion. He doesn't have the strikeout ability, so he's probably just going to be a back end pitcher. That's fine. Those guys are usable, and what you were saying in the beginning, they have a lot of those. You kind of can never have too many with the injury risk of pitchers. So, like, to me, there's more risk in this deal than in the previous deal. The deal with the Diamondbacks with Fletcher and Mena is riskier in total, but these are risks the White Sox have to take. They are bereft in depth in the outfield. When you look down their minor league list of who their top prospects, there's no outfielders in there. There are no outfielders. No. We got Wilfred Veras, who's faking it in the outfield. He's a fucking first baseman too, like Sheets and these other knuckleheads they try to put out there. They need outfielders so goddamn bad. And so sometimes you just have to make these trades. They may have even, and I don't know this, they may have even traded, a little bit at a disadvantage just to get the positional stuff right, Chorizy. I'm not sure. Maybe Mena is a little more valuable than Fletcher. I guess we're going to find out in real life very soon.
Yeah, and Fletcher, I mean, I think if you're looking at some positives of what he's been able to do is he did start in the minors with a very high strikeout rate, very low walk rate, and he seemed to fix that. So you could see that over time as you look at his stats in the minors. So he at least is able to adapt at the plate. We'll see how that translates to the pros. We have a very small, very, very small sample size of him in the major leagues, which is only about 100 plate appearances. So it's tough to make any determinations off that. But again, Beef, he was in the Pacific Coast League. So like any power, any doubles that he's hitting there, like it's unknown if that's going to translate to the majors. Like that could be a big downside. Maybe he does hit well in terms of strikeout rate, in terms of walk rate, right. But he just doesn't have the power. That would be right. That would be rough to have in right field because you kind of have that in left field too.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Sin City Swindler says, have to think Barfield believes him. Absolutely. So you know this is a trigger here. Barfield just came from there. And Teresa, you mentioned it when we were out to dinner last night. The Diamondbacks kind of had a glut of outfielders. And tell me your thoughts on why you think this guy becomes expendable and why the roster's kind of locked with the outfielders that they got.
Well, so this is the thing, right? Like last year they sent Alek Thomas down, and that's when Dominic Fletcher actually got up to the majors.
Yeah, he played a little bit.
And then they bring Alek Thomas back, and he has a great playoffs. You're not going to move that guy. That guy's kind of grabbed his position, and now you've pushed a lot of guys down because I think at some point they probably thought Alek Thomas may or may not be a guy. Now he's, you'd go to the World Series, someone has a great run in the playoffs, they're now your guy, right? Yep. Like you'd be kind of crazy to go like, I'm just going to move this guy. But that leaves Dominic Fletcher with nowhere to go.
Yep.
And he's not getting younger. Right. So, like, I mean, I think this is a thing where it's like, we don't have anything to do with this guy. Like, when we have guys like Drew Jones that, like, if someone gets hurt, he's going to be there. So, like, I think it'll be interesting to see how that translates to the White Sox, though, because the Sox, from what Getz is saying, it sounds like it's going to be Fletcher against righties. And for now, Pilar against lefties. Like that looks like and if you look at roster resource, that's what they're predicting as well. So I'm overall, I'm not like going crazy about this one. Yeah. But it also seems like this guy could be just fine in right field. He'll be a lot easier to watch than what we've been watching. And since we have to do it up close, like 60 times a year, Beef, I'm all for a guy that could actually run a nice route to the ball. He could also he could throw a little bit, you know, like that's kind of all I ask for.
I was gonna say, even if he's a league average defense, league average bat in right field, that's going to be like a 4 or 5 win improvement over the piece of shit that was out there in right field last year over various combinations with Sheets and Colas and everybody else. It's going to be noticeable if he's just okay. These are the holes they're filling, you know, like Chemo said, you know, you got to fill the hole like in calculus. So that's what the White Sox are kind of doing here. And I think you have to gamble on it. These guys aren't spring chickens. The guys you can get in trades like this, these guys are 26 and 25. Fletcher's 26, DeLoach is 25. You're not going to get their 22-year-old outfielder prospect. It's just not going to happen in these spots. And you got to give up a real guy. I mean, Mena's, doesn't throw that hard, but he's starting pitcher material. You have to give up some real shit in these situations. And so I'm absolutely fine with taking these risks. And I see in the comments right here, Clutch Hat Trick says they traded a 20-year-old with 200 career minor league innings at AAA. Yeah, that's a rough trade. And I agree with you. Let me pull that comment back up. I agree with you, Clutch Hat. Mena was the one prospect actually fucking producing, right? You hear all these, if you do this little sliver of his 22 innings here, like, he's good. Fucking Mena takes the ball, and he gets out there. And so that's why I think a lot of Sox fans are a little hurt by this deal because they're like, what the fuck? This guy was actually achieving some shit in the minors. And not like these other chuckleheads. He actually shot through our minors. He was a guy that got an international. He made it all the way up. He's still young. He's made it through these levels. He looks to be durable. And you're trading him? Like, what the hell? But shit costs, you know?
Yeah.
You get nothing's for free, you know?
So if you're not going to spend money, you're going to spend prospects, right? I mean, like if you're going to try and build an actual team, which, you know, give Getz some credit. He is trying to do that. He's trying to put together a real team, a team of guys that play the position that we're putting them out there for, right?
Absolutely.
Like he's getting Gavin Sheets out of the outfield. That's what he did yesterday.
Trying to re-rack this thing.
It cost him a minor league pitching prospect. Like that.
And Alex Rude says in the comments, the OPS against his fastball, Mena's fastball was near 1,000. Yeah, Mena got hit up in the upper levels of the minors because he doesn't throw that hard. He's like 91 with the fastball. Curveball's good. Like it's a back end starter. That's what it's going to be with Mena. If it works out, he's going to be your 4 or 5 starter. And maybe he goes to Arizona and he kills it as a 4th starter or something. I wish him luck, but I'm fine making moves like this. I would do this all day. I would flip guys over all day for obvious holes on our roster, our depth chart, our organization. I got absolutely no problem with it.
Now, Beef, you had something on Fletcher and his I think it was his barrels in the minors. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. So I actually pulled this from Twitter, and it's Luke Smales, who good follow on some statistical stuff. He said of the 450 AAA hitters last year with at least 100 batted balls, there were 5 with a 10% barrel rate and a sub 20% whiff rate. And Chorizy, that's something we were talking about too, is the strikeout rates go higher when you get to the majors. So having that sub 20% rate is key. And so here's the AAA hitters: Michael Busch,
barely sub 20.
It's like 19.9999. Jonathan Aranda, Mike Ford, Kyle Manzardo, and Dominic Fletcher. So Fletcher, good barrel rate in the minors, but doesn't strike out too much. So, the bat has some promise to it. We'll see how much it translates to the majors, Chorizy. As we said, it's PCL shit, so we don't know. But let's see. It looks promising so far.
Yeah, I can only hope for the best here, right? Yeah. And I think the fun thing about this trade is that I think we see Fletcher immediately. Like I think he's our starting right fielder opening day. Unless
Chorizy, he's gonna fit in Bridgeport great. He's fluent in Italian. I don't know if you knew that. Yep. He's fluent in Italian. I saw it on Twitter. I've been spreading the word. So he's a paisan. So it's all good.
You could tell he's Italian because he feels it deep.
That's right. And so I want to pull up another graphic. Alex Rude sent it over to us before the show, so thanks, Alex. I appreciate it. A lot of the chatter about, Chris Getz is useless offseason, he's not doing anything or whatever. Here's a chart of the 2024's most projected WAR added since the start of the offseason. And there's Chris Getz, ahead of all the AL Central teams for sure. But that's the White Sox checking in at number 9. ninth most projected WAR added in the offseason. So as much as you would like a splashy signing that could probably go wrong, like Jorge Soler, so far so good on adding just raw parts to this roster for Chris Getz. It's a decent offseason, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think I just like that our GM's out there making some moves, right?
Yeah.
Doing something, right? Trying new things.
Yep.
I can't like that enough. Like, I mean, like I just feel like you need a guy with some balls to make these types of moves. And it takes balls to take a guy like Gregory Santos, who everybody has seen and said, oh, that guy should close, and go, he should close for someone else. It's a ballsy move. I like what we're doing.
Yeah.
But Beef, I don't have anything else on these. I think we can probably wrap it up. I just want to remind people, though, that we are going to be doing a live show March 27th at the Ramova. You get your tickets here. Right? There's a link in the below too, so you can check that out. That's going to be with Sox Machine, March 27th, opening day eve. Should be a really great time. But that's it for today. Hope everybody has a great rest of the weekend and fends off those Sunday scaries. We'll talk to you soon.